Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Application of technology is among the critical success factors for natural resource utilization, and the industry is embracing technology like never before. However, resource producers still need to enhance deployment of technologies in their operations for putting mines and wells that are currently inaccessible within reach, raising the efficiency of extraction techniques, and using sophisticated data analysis to identify, extract, and manage resources. Technology is globally an intrinsic part of the natural resources business plan, yielding all-round gains. For the foot soldier, technology adoption means embracing safety and improving productivity. It is time technology disruption becomes the key talking point of natural resources in India. Presenting the session, Disruptive, Future Technologies for Natural Resources, on Global Natural Resources Conclave.
We've got a very exciting session coming up, innovation and disruptive technologies. Our first speaker today is Mr. Stewart Muir, who's the Executive Director of Resource Works. Please come up to stage.
Disruptive innovation applies to many domains under mining: geoscience, big data, safety, sustainability, regulatory issues, finance, and finally what we heard at the end was the public trust understanding of mining issues. And I just wanted to skim over some issues there, particularly on the last one, because I think for India, what I've learned in the last 48 hours is that all of these threads are significant, but the one I need to focus on is the trust and understanding, because that drives everything else today. You know, trust is a technology issue in that context because it conditions how people can experience innovation in all its different forms. And I think to the lightly populated homeland that I have, Canada, there's probably 80% support for responsible development of natural resources. Just a couple of topic points. You know, Canada's home to 5 of the world's top 20 universities for mining. That's a very good number. Mining jobs are the highest paying of any industry in Canada, $55 Canadian an hour. That's a lot of money here. It's also a lot of money in Canada. You know, we're overcoming a lot of technological barriers. I understand that mining historically in India has gone to depths of 300 feet or so, the depth of the Taj Mahal if it was turned upside down. In Canada, in the north of Ontario, they're mining 34 Taj Mahals deep. And it's possible to do that through technology and innovation that's constant all the time.
Thank you very much. If everyone could thank Stewart, please. Our next speaker is Mr. Scott Lawson. Scott's the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for Newmont Mining.
Newmont's been recognized as a first mover in many parts of the technology space. We were the first to discover invisible or microscopic gold in the 1960s, which then allowed the development of heap leaches and so on to extract very, very low-grade ore. We've also developed in the exploration group what we call deep sensing geochemistry, which allows us to take surface samples and really extrapolate down hundreds of meters of what geology could lie beneath those different areas. Resource modeling, you know, we've developed proprietary techniques around how we do our resource models, and over the last 3 years have been able to improve the accuracy of our production profile in the resource models by 10%, which is very significant when you're doing production planning and trying to run your operations. We've also developed unique life of mine strategic planning and mine optimization techniques, which have added over $1 billion in NPV to the business over the last 3 years. And finally, we have proprietary resource or metallurgical models and mineral processing models, which have allowed us to increase recoveries over 6% at our Boddington and KCGM operations. on something that may not eventuate and really add value to the business.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is Mr. Vijay Iyer. Vijay is the Managing Director of Rio Tinto India. Welcome, Vijay.
Good afternoon, and thanks, Peter. In terms of Rio Tinto and the technology itself, you've seen that the advent of computing power, big data analytics, the cloud, the ability to remote sense and to gather operational data at on a real-time basis, all this is helping us to create huge opportunities in terms of improving productivity. The safety and well-being of our people is vastly improved with technology. Safety is a core value for Rio Tinto, and we are constantly using technology to find better ways to create a safer working environment. The advent of technology is helping us to improve the outcomes from exploration through automated drilling techniques, putting sensors in the drill tips, finding ways in which we can use our analytical tools with 3D methods, with 3D visualization to get better insights. And as a company, we are deeply committed to India. We've been here for many years, and we see a lot of potential.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Vijay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So our next speaker is Mr. Scott Caithness. Scott is currently the Head of Exploration for Hindustan Zinc.
First of all, in terms of exploration, there's been major developments and changes in exploration over the last decade, and the technology that's been introduced into that. It's a very, very scientific process these days. Gone are the days of simply going to an ancient working, for example, in India, and having a look underneath that to, as people mentioned before, maybe 200 or 300 feet below that. We're actually drilling holes down to 1.5 kilometres as part of our exploration work around our mineral deposits these days. Again, to give people a perspective of some of the technologies that we require, we assay our samples down to parts per million and parts per billion. So the analytical work is very, very detailed and very, very fine. We use geophysical techniques. So, for example, some of our mineral deposits conduct electricity. So we use techniques where we put electricity into the ground. We light them up, and hopefully, when we go to drill them, they're the right material that we're after. However, technology applied in the wrong manner is actually more of a detriment to your success than actually a favourable thing. But the other key point about exploration is it's still a very high-risk business. There's lots of technology has gone into it. There's lots of technological changes that have occurred, but it's still a very, very high-risk business. Certainly one of the biggest challenges in technology with exploration is basically keeping up with the new technologies that exist. As we hear all the time, there's constant change going on. It's a constantly evolving area. For us in exploration, outsourcing a lot of what we do actually provides a natural hedge for us with technology. When you outsource those activities, obviously the drilling companies have got to be keeping up with whatever the latest technologies are to be competitive, to maintain their competitive advantage. Otherwise, we won't use them. They won't be able to achieve what we want to achieve. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Scott.
I'd like to start by getting Dr. Prasad from the ministry to explain how you see sustainability.
Sustainability in general definition will mean what we understand in the ministry also, that it is using the resources wisely, using the resources in such a way that we leave something for the next generation, and also that we take along everybody on this. When we are talking about earth or we are talking about environment, there are very contentious issues on that. It is about the use of resources. It is about the wise use of resources. So sustainability to us in the ministry or the government will mean that we use our resources in such a way that it takes care of everybody, about everybody's need and also the limitation of it.
Pierre, you represent at a mining association in Canada. So give the mining industry a voice. How would you see sustainability?
So when we think of sustainability in the mining sector, we really are looking at what's the contribution to the broader community, to the skills of the employees, to the country as a whole. How does the development of a mine contribute more broadly so that and ensure that its contribution is in fact enduring and generational in nature. Mines are large undertakings. They can be transformative, raising education standards, skills, leading to the development of new businesses. That is contributing to sustainability in the mining sector.
Mark, you want to add to that, representing another mining voice?
One is health and safety, which means you're looking after your people, and these are the people that are in the community, and you need to do that. Second of all, it's looking after environment, leading edge environmental practices. You need to plan how you're going to close your mine before you start it, and leading sustainability means you're putting the money in the bank before you start it to close the mine. So if something happens to the markets and the mine goes bankrupt, that place can be rehabilitated.
Andrew, you want to weigh in at this point?
If you look at those three legs of sustainability, environmental, social and financial, if you miss one of them, it doesn't matter which one you miss. If you miss one of them, the other two will fall over eventually. So it's very, very important when looking at sustainability, external stakeholder management, that it is a balance and an understanding of how the environmental, the social and the financial work together. The second point that I would make very quickly is there is a changing thinking in the sustainability space, and let me call it initial thinking, middle thinking and advanced thinking. Initial thinking says we need to do some corporate social responsibility, but that's not enough. And I would then go into what I call middle thinking, which can be summarised by Michael Porter and Mark Kramer's work at Harvard University, shared value, looking at the way you can then link with profitability, and the best example of that is BHP's anti-malaria programs they did in Mozambique before it was divested to South 32. The most advanced thinking takes the shared value thinking and goes to the next level. How do we manage environmental, social and financial sustainability to not just improve profitability, but improve value of our assets through lowering the risk of our operations, improving risk-adjusted returns, and therefore improve valuation on the stock market, which then feeds into senior executive remuneration.
Dr. Kirit, Parikh, how is India faring on the sustainability front?
I think we are doing reasonably well. I think, in fact, considering our level of development, we could say that we are doing more than what many people can expect us to do. When it comes to renewable resources, we should also recognize that air, water, and land quality are also extremely important resources. So that when you do mining, you should really make sure that you have adequate, your land quality does not degrade, that your water quality is not affected, water doesn't get polluted, and that you do not really make adverse impact on air quality. This is critical.
Let me get Ravi in here. Ravi, there's a lot of forecasting that you guys do. Give us a sense of how you evaluate India's performance in the drive towards sustainability when it comes to natural resources.
My view, sustainability is about doing more with less. And when it comes to two good examples, what we have done in India is, if you look at in CII, if you look at the Indian Green Building Council, we have actually, over the last 10 years, created 4.85 billion square feet of green buildings in India, which actually consumes less electricity. Now the question is, what is sustainability? In my view, I think it's a value creation, it's three-dimensional growth, both of people, values, economy, businesses. So it's a balancing act that we need to do, and all stakeholders need to participate and actually use the mindset and the ecosystem to build an environment that is far more sustainable, of using less of natural resources and creating more of economic value actually.
Right. Let me get Prodipto, Ghosh in here. The question I have to you is how do local communities get involved effectively?
We need to find a middle ground. First of all, I think in some respects the Forest Rights Act goes too far and it gives local communities, local gram panchayats a veto right on projects which are, which have a tremendous role in India's transformation. But second of all, we need to recognize that a serious conversation at a high political level has not happened as yet as to what are the legal entitlements. What is the social contract between the central government, the state governments, the local communities? And I think that in India we need to have this conversation. We need to carry this forward through policies, through legislation, through regulation, and through norms by which natural resources are allocated to economic use.
Let me get Mark in here. Mark, how do companies see the investment in sustainability with relation to profitability?
Very solid business case for being sustainable. There's no question in my mind about that. And there's many reasons for that. Hurting people all the time means your workers are not there. It means that you're going to have to retrain folks. It means your loss of production, those sorts of things. So keeping a healthy workforce, a safe workforce, saves you money. A clean environment. Again, if you don't have a clean environment, then you're going to be having to clean up. And cleaning up after the fact is far more expensive than doing things right in the first place. Both of them, if you don't do them well, is going to cause you to have problems with local communities. And all of these things will result in problems with regulators. So your permits are going to get slower, and you can have all kinds of other impediments to you being able to do business well. If you're not doing these things well, you're not going to be able to obtain and keep qualified people. And it's getting more and more difficult to attract people to our industry because of a perceived bad reputation. And I think we've done a lot of good things, but we still need to have good health, safety, and environmental performance in order to be able to attract and keep these people, because they don't want to work for a dirty industry.
Pierre, you have a question for for our secretary from the Ministry of Forest and Environment. The role of the regulator in setting the agenda.
I just wanted to pick up on Mark's comment around the ensuring how you provide customers of our products that they've been sourced sustainably. This is an issue that's been in the forestry sector now for a lot longer than in the mining sector. You've got FSC certification around the world and other standards. So this is something that forestry learned a lot earlier than we did. I wonder if you might want to comment on any sort of observations and lessons learned over the last 15 to 20 years on the issue of forestry certification.
Competitive nature of sustainability itself and the conflicting demands on the natural resources and less engagement of people around. I mean, these are the common problems which we find in the sustainability issue of natural resources.
Well, Dr. Prasad, what is the agenda that the ministry needs to see?
The ministry, with the mining sector, ministry has only one small role to play, and that is about the regulatory nature of it. We are giving from the Environment Ministry the environment impact assessment of mining sector, and that is both for from the environment point of view and also from the forest point of view. Now there is a compensatory forest scheme here in India, which will be from the amount of the land or the forest which is being utilized in the mines. NPV has to be done. So that is it. But then then there is, because of the nature of the resources itself, because it is in the traditional land set or it is mostly in the tribal areas, so there is always the problem of engaging the people in the entire process. Though there is there are rules and laws which talks about environment impact assessment and engaging the people, taking their views in mind, but sometimes I'm afraid to say in front of the mining industry itself that it is not done in the spirit in which it has to be done. Now, I will say that in India, the extraction of mining last 10-15 years has not been so positive because of the less information provided by the sector. And I feel that if the information sharing is better, people will appreciate the problem also, and people will try to understand and try to support for that matter.
Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for this long, exhaustive conversation.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.